All right, we're ready, folks. Thank you for your patience. We just had to wait for Zoom to get hooked up, so we're ready to go. The folks out in Zoom land can all see us or see what's on the screen. They don't see us; they see what's on the screen, so they hear us now. Welcome to the AP Voucher Workflow Training. For those of you on Zoom, you should have today's email with today's attachments. We did update the handouts last night after yesterday's sessions. And for those of you who came in, there were 3 different handouts. There's a non-PO voucher handout, budget authority approval handout, and PO voucher handout. Okay, we're going to start with the non-PO voucher handout this afternoon. Okay, and we're not here to teach you all over again how to create vouchers. You've been doing that for a while now, and I don't see anybody brand spanking new in here. We had a couple of newbies here this morning and yesterday, but I don't see anybody brand new in here. So everybody's already created vouchers at least once. So you pretty well know this is how you create it. So on the non-PO voucher handout, we're going to skip page 1. And we're actually going to skip page 2. On page 3, I am going to pause just a minute to talk with you about the Payments tab briefly. Those of you who were here when we went live in April of 2014 may remember this discussion. I've slept since then, so you did too. You may not remember. But the way PeopleSoft is designed, it's very strict about how it calculates late payment interest. And so if you change the default payment term of net 30 to due upon receipt, some of our, for a membership or maybe a registration is due upon receipt, we need to cut the check right now. But if you received that last week, that's the receive date, you received it last week, and you're entering the voucher today, we're already late. And PeopleSoft accrues interest. So please leave that at net 30. And if you need to go ahead and get it paid, then enter a payment date in that scheduled due field that's circled right below the payment terms. Okay? All righty. And then if we look at the screenshot below that, a lot of vendors will indicate they require payment or want payment by direct deposit. And there's primarily two different ways Tyler pays the vendors, which is either by direct deposit, and that's indicated by the little code ACH, which means Automated Clearinghouse. And I mean, the rest of us know it as direct deposit, or paper check, which is denoted by CHK in that box. And if you do select paper check, or your vendor is only set up for paper check, then you'll need to take note of the handling field that is to the right of that. UT Tyler uses 2 handling methods. If you click on the search icon, you'll see a long list of methods. Most of them are set up for the other campuses. We use US Mail, which is the US code, or we use Pickup, which is the PU code. If you, for either way, if you're using a paper check, you can certainly enter a message in that message box that's right below there. That prints out on the check stub. And lastly, to the right, separate payment is circled. We strongly recommend that you click the separate payment box. This alleviates some of the vendor calls that we get where if more than one person has not checked separate payment for the same vendor, then the vendor gets a combined payment, and then they call Ms. Fay and say, how do I apply this? And then we have to go back and look up all of the individual payments to go, this much was for this invoice, this much was for this invoice, this much was for this invoice. So please remember to check separate payment, unless maybe you're the only one that uses that vendor and you know that. Athletics has certain vendors nobody else on campus uses, and they may have worked it out with their vendor to go, okay, let's just pay for all the soccer field, men's and women's together. Okay, all right. So then on page 4, what's circled on the top screenshot is that calc basis date field. And so we'll talk about, if you click on that hyperlink, then you get that date calculations pop-up screen. So we'll talk about the dates briefly here again, just to remind everybody. The invoice receipt date is the date you stamp your invoice. We are required to date stamp invoices. The state's net 30 calculation is not based on the date the vendor printed their invoice 3 weeks ago. It's the date we stamp it. If we get it in the mail today, we stamp it today. If you get it in campus mail today, you stamp it today. A lot of times financial services gets mail that needs to be directed other places in campus, not based on when we got it. You placed the order. They should have sent the invoice to you, and if they didn't, sometimes they even come by email. That's fine, print it out and date stamp. And so it's the date you stamp it. You can use that same date in the invoice date field. And then right below that, we have the goods/service received date. So goods received is pretty self-explanatory. That's when your order got delivered. That's when your computers came in, whatever. And so that's pretty self-explanatory. That's the same date in both of the fields, the goods received date, the acceptance date. Services is a little different story though. If your department has a special speaker coming in, maybe for communications, they're going to be here all week, then the completed service is the last day they were here. And so that would be that last day of their service is the date that you put in here. If it's something ongoing, I know occasionally physical plant might use vendors for a project that's ongoing for a month or two, and occasionally they'll have the contract set up for multiple payments. And so they would use the service completed for that portion of the work. And so it's not the whole project completed, it's just for that portion of the work. The service date box on the right-hand side was actually custom built for the general ledger budget team for them to track ongoing expenditures. So for something like a membership, 12-month membership, or 12-month site software license or maintenance agreement that might start with the beginning of fiscal year, so September 1st through August 31st, you actually put those dates. This is when the service begins, this is when the service ends. So it's not just a copy of the same dates from a field over here to a field over there. Now, obviously, your goods would be the same date you received them. That's fine. A catering service let's talk about maybe freshman orientation or something, where maybe you're having catering services come in and they bill you for that. That might be a couple of weeks worth of dates in there. So there could be a variety of things in the service date field, okay? Okay, on page 5, that's actually talking about how you create your voucher. And again, I'm not going to waste your time with that whole description there, but I do want to draw your attention to the green box in the middle around the account code field. Vouchers are payments for expenditures, and the account codes for expenditures begin with a 6. So almost always, every time, a voucher will have only account codes that begin with a 6. When do you have your voucher up? Where we can look at that? Okay, good, because we can do a search on that. So when you click on your search icon, because you don't know what office supplies in, or we don't know what membership is, and we used membership this morning because it is one of the tricky ones. If you go to look up membership with begins with, you're not going to get anything. But if you go ahead and put contains and type in part of the word member, and then click the lookup button, this particular one, so if you notice, it starts with dues. And so you're never going to find membership. Even using a 6, you're not going to find membership looking begins because it doesn't start with that. It starts with due. So the contains filter probably works much better with PeopleSoft because you don't have to know exactly what you're looking for. But I recommend always put a 6 up top, then look for a part of the word using the contains filter to narrow down what you need. So if you forget to put the number up top and you just put in part of a word, you might get account codes that start with 1, 2, 3, 4, or something else that are not expenses that cause an error down the line that either the general ledger office, budget office have to correct, or that we have to correct downstairs. We try to catch them, but if we don't catch them, then we end up having to do the, what's that form called? The chart field correction form?
Expense and
Okay.
voucher correction form.
And of course, by that point, after you've gotten all the data entered into your voucher, then you can click the Save button. Okay? So then page 6 of this handout starts the new information. On the Invoice Information tab, which is where Faye is now, we want to draw your attention over to the right-hand side where it has the attachment function. Now, I know when we had the training for travel and expense, we talked about attachments with travel and expense, and I think a lot of you are using those now. With vouchers, using the Image Now workaround form, we're able to glean some information from that to validate and verify vouchers now. But the Image Now form is going away. We aren't going to have that information. And so beginning when we turn on workflow, you will need to attach your supporting documentation to the voucher in order for us to appropriately review it and approve it. And so if we get documents over to AP that don't have the attachments, we'll have to send those back so that we get some sort of supporting documentation. For a non-PO voucher, it might not be called an invoice. When you get membership forms in, sometimes it's a form, it's not called invoice. So for a non-PO voucher, it'll be whatever you got that is asking you for payment or that you're electing to make payment on. We'll talk about the other types of attachments for PO vouchers when we get to the PO voucher section. Okay, and more than likely all of you have already tried the attachment on travel and expense, or you may already be using them on vouchers already because it's already there on vouchers. You may have used them or not. Yes, ma'am.
On our C card,
Yes.
we just attach just the invoice, or do we do all the receipts?
I think just the invoice. Just the invoice that lists the charges.
I was thinking we can look those up, but yeah, that would be convenient probably if it was attached.
The statement.
The statement.
Yes. The other advantage to this is for the non-PO vouchers, which will route to your budget authority, at some point you may not have to take a stack of paperwork into them anymore. Some of you may already be doing this with the travel and expense forms. No, Dr. Jones, I attached it, and you can click the attachment to review it. I don't need to bring in the stack of paperwork to you anymore. It's right there on the attachment. You know, some folks are old school. I'm kind of old school. We may like the stack of paperwork to go through. Sorry. Yeah, she's giving me a grin because I get the paperwork still. That is an option coming for our budget authorities, though, is that, you know, this will be paperless after you scan it in. Then it'll be paperless for folks down the line.
You do have a comment.
Oh, we do have a comment. Okay, good. This is, Peggy Mahu said, woohoo. Okay. All right. So then also on the, we'll get back to the invoice information tab. Okay. So today, without workflow, all of the vouchers are created in approved status. I don't know if you've ever noticed that before. When you save it and you go back to your summary screen, it shows approved status. So when Faye or Marlene or one of the ladies in disbursements get to it, the only way UT system programmers had for it to stop at us before it just paid out was for us to do this budget checking step. And so for us, for the last almost 3 years, we've done the budget checking, and once we budget check it, it schedules to pay. So for right now, that's been the stopping point. But with workflow, you'll be doing the budget checking step before it routes to your budget authority. That way your budget authority knows, yes, there's enough money to pay for that. And so that's where, oh, did we have another question? Okay. Okay. And so on the invoice information tab of the non-PO voucher, at the top right corner, there's an action drop-down box. And the available action for non-PO vouchers is budget checking. And so it's not dissimilar from what you do with expense reports. You do the budget checking and click the run button. And you'll get a pop-up that asks if you want to wait for this to be over. You could say yes. Or if you have other things to do, you know how PeopleSoft is. It could take 30 seconds or it could take 2-3 minutes. So for the purposes of this, we'll go ahead and say yes. And on page 6 of the voucher, we've got that screenshot. And then we have a screenshot showing that there were budget checking errors. Pardon? Okay. Okay. And for this voucher, down in the bottom left-hand corner, it shows budget status valid. You always want to see that. That's a good thing. That means, okay, I'm done with it. It's ready to go to the budget authority. On the bottom of page 6, it shows, oh, wait, here's an error message with budget checking errors. And so even today, when Faye or Marlena or one of the other ladies is working the vouchers, you may get an email where they email you and copy the budget team to say this voucher has budget errors. And typically the errors are on page 7, page 7, the first error message is exceeds budget tolerance. This message really does mean there's not enough money. Chart fields are good, not enough money. And so there's 2 options. On a non-PO voucher, you can change the chart fields to one that you know has more money so that you can budget check it again. You'll get the valid status. Or no, it really does need to be paid out of this particular cost center. And so then you'll put in a budget transfer and work with the budget team to get funds moved over to that cost center, and then you'll re-budget check it so that it will go to the valid status. The second error message in the middle of page 7 is the message, no budget exists. This can mean a couple of different things. Either, and it rarely happens on vouchers because there is a speed chart. Can you go to invoice information for me? On the invoice information tab, when you're entering information, so towards the bottom here, you have a speed chart field where you could type in just your cost center or your project, and it populates all the associated chart fields. You don't have to enter all the chart fields. If you'll remember on ProCard, if you're changing funding, you have to enter all the chart fields, and if there's a typo, we get this message, no budget exists. The other reason you might get this error message is, and it happened to be in financial services, budget office was setting up a new cost center, and they sent me the form to say, here's your new cost center. Yay, here's the new cost center. We went to use it, nothing happened because they hadn't finished all of the running they had to do on the budget side or general ledger side. And so that could happen to you as well if you're waiting for new cost centers to be set up or something like that. And then also we've indicated on here, if you have a project, projects are set up much more specifically by account code. So they'll set up budget for maybe speakers coming in for that project, or they'll set up budget specifically for equipment or other very specific things. So the projects are set up by account code. And if you've entered an account code that wasn't set up in the grants office, you're going to get this message. So if you're using a cost center, rule of thumb, you'll email the budget office to say, I've gotten this, no budget exists, or I've gotten this exceeds budget tolerance. If it's a grant, then you'll want to email Debbie Gibson. Okay? All right. So it's not really new. This is happening today. The new part is you're going to be the ones to see this, not accounts payable. Okay? So this is a new page because now you'll be seeing this. Okay? Okay. Oh, and down at the bottom of page 7, there's the little note. Vouchers are in accounts payable module. And if you click on the hyperlink and it'll show up on your summary screen, if you click on the hyperlink for the budget exceptions, it takes you out and puts you in the commitment control module. And everybody's probably familiar with commitment control. where you go in to double check to see how your budget is doing, what money's left, what's available, what you've spent. Okay? All right. So page 8. Well, we've already talked about the budget status. This particular voucher that Faye was working on is already in valid status. And back over on the invoice information tab, God forbid they should put all the buttons on one screen. In the middle on the right-hand side is the submit for approval button. And just like with expense reports, if you're not done with the document, you don't have to submit for approval. You can leave it sit and it stays with you. But you do have to remember to click the submit button to put it into workflow to route it to your budget authority. Okay? And when you click on the submit for approval button, you will get the following box, the approved comments box. Right now today, your budget authorities see this box on expense reports. It's the sort of the last chance for them to go, do I really want to approve this? Well, for you, it's do I really want to submit this? Because with the PO vouchers, budget authorities don't get this. It's kind of like requisitions. When the budget authority clicks approve, it's approved. Okay. And
Do you have to put anything in here?
no, you do not. It's a free form box. And so, you know, if there's just one last little bit of information you want to give to your budget authority or even to AP down the line, you can certainly enter more comments in here. So these are comments that are separate and apart from the voucher comments that are on the invoice information tab. Okay? All right.
Okay.
And so she's going to click OK. It'll take just a couple of minutes. And then now if we go to the summary page, we can see that the approval status is pending, and it changed from what did it say, preview history to approval history. I'm click on approval history, and basically whether it's in preview history or approval history, you're going to see the same screen. So for this particular voucher, it was just a cost center, and it goes straight from budget authority to accounts payable. And for this test voucher, Jane is a budget authority, Cindy's a budget authority, Sachin's a budget authority. And so any one of those three people could approve this voucher. So for some of your departments, I know for quite a few expense reports, there's the budget authority and his supervisor. And so you see two names, or the budget authority sees two names. For expense reports, very few, I'm sorry, not expense reports. For requisitions, very few departments have backups. And the only time on a requisition or on a voucher is if your department has requested a backup. I think physical plant might be one where they just have a standing backup, so that if the AVP's out of town or out of the office, they don't just have to shut down physical plant. They can go ahead and keep getting things paid. Okay. So on the bottom of page 9, just to reiterate, vouchers route first to the department approver, which is the budget authority. Then if it is grant related, it'll route to a project manager if the project manager is set up to be somebody different than the department budget authority. That it could be 2 different people. And then grant central office, or central grants office, I'm sorry, which is Debbie Gibson's area. And then finally to accounts payable. Okay? So this was non-PO vouchers. Does anybody have questions about the procedures or the actions for non-PO vouchers? Do you have anybody on chatting? We're doing good? Okay. Okay. All right. So the next handout that I'm going to go to is the Department Budget Authority Approval handout pages. Okay. Uh-oh, screen sharing has stopped. What did you do?
Let me push the emergency button.
Well, how do we just click back in? To stop recording. We don't want to stop recording. I guess you're going to have to click the button back. So I did. Oh, wait a minute. Somehow or the other, our thingy showed up down here. Yeah, okay, so I think people can still hear us. So just in case you folks can still hear us. Oh, try that. Yeah. 'Cause this is desktop. Just click the X. Did we lose it altogether? No, it says, no, we're sharing because it says stop share. Okay. So I'm hoping that everybody in Zoom land can still see the screen and hear us. No, we just want them to see what's on the screen, not us.
They can't see.
Darn it.
New share?
Oh, maybe new share.
It's there. Here, and see screen. Okay.
Okay. That was Cindy. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Ellen, Susan, and
Okay, good.
Donna.
Thank you. All
I
right.
don't think I did anything.
Okay, so you're gonna get it
Yeah.
ready for me to log in. Okay. So on the Budget Authority handout page, the first page is mostly informational for them. And, you know, you can certainly read over this. These are probably things that are familiar to you. And at the bottom of the page, we just talked about how the documents route. So we'll go ahead and turn the page. And I'm not going to spend time on pages 2 or 3 because they've already seen this for expense reports. They'll be getting an email when you submit a document. They'll get an email, so they can either log in from the email or they can log in straight into UT Share PeopleSoft like we do.
I
Okay.
signed in. Wasn't thinking.
Oh, and I have. Oh, yay. Log in. Oops, we want to make this bigger. Okay, so then once the Budget Authority is logged in, then they'll go to the work list, or if they're going from their email, I believe it takes them straight to their that document. Okay, so let me go down to the bottom. It didn't do it by date. 110. Okay. Oh, that's a requisition. We'll use this one. Sheila, I haven't done her requisition yet. Okay, so page 2 and 3 are basically what they already know for requisitions and expense reports. So we don't have to take time to talk about that here. Now take a look at this screen. So it's in the handout and it is up here. Those tabs don't have the same titles as what you just saw creating your voucher. So what this means is the Budget Authority is not taken to the voucher. They're taken to this approval screen, which gives them information from the voucher. So I don't know if any of your budget authorities are accustomed to pulling up UT Share PeopleSoft right now and the ImageNow form and looking at information. I don't know if they're accustomed to doing that or not. They still can do that if they want to do that. They can still do that. You can click on the new window hyperlink that's in the that upper right hand. So that way you can have two screens up at the same time if you want. You can go back to that one. That's certainly a business process that's up to your budget authority as to what they're already accustomed to doing. But I did want to bring your attention because if your budget authority asks you to come in and help decipher what he's seeing, and the first time you see that screen is that day and not today, you're going to be going, I don't know what you're looking at. So it's okay. This is still the information being pulled over from the voucher. So it defaults to the approval screen. The approval screen has a little basic information. We see there's the vendor name, and it shows how much, here's details, shows how much we're going to be paying Abel's Land. It does have the attachments come over to this approval screen. So the supporting documentation you've attached, the budget authority can see, just as accounts payable will be able to see. The line information tab gives specific information. So if you had a voucher that had 50 lines with all kinds of either lab supplies or office supplies, you'll see the budget authority will see all of the different lines in there for the things that have been ordered. And then, excuse me, the charge information tab shows how it's being funded. And for whatever reason, this is a cost center, and the cost center is way over here to the right. Okay. And so once the budget authority has reviewed this information, compared it to the supporting documentation, then they can go back to the approval screen tab, approval tab. Okay. And then towards the middle and towards the bottom are the places where the budget authority has spots for action. Okay, so I'm going to turn over to page 5. Here's where there is new functionality for the campus, so for budget authorities. In the middle where it shows department approval, so this isn't unlike what we just saw when you were creating it, when it shows the pending history or approval history. They see the same thing. That's what those boxes are, but do you see the little green plus sign? This is a good functionality where possibly you want, or budget authority, because you won't see this. The budget authority, these are the budget authority screens. The budget authority can insert an ad hoc approver. So I know for the library, the director sometimes routes things, or she wants one of her assistants to review the information to verify that it's correct. And that person did not enter it. And so it's a great set of eyes. Rick, you may be entering things, or I take it back. Maybe they're routing to you and Dr. Mirmoran still wants to see them if we don't get workflow set up right. And you can insert him here. I wish we had this on expense reports. It would have saved a world of grief. We don't have it. Anyway, so you can click the plus sign, and an example of that is shown on the bottom of page 5. And let me back up. We'll go to the middle of page 5. Well, I can do it here too. When the budget authority clicks the plus sign, they'll get a little pop-up. And this is where they can select the person that they either want to review this document or further approve the document. And the one caveat or the one trick to this is they can't just type anybody's name in there. They have to select somebody who has appropriate security in PeopleSoft. So if they want to route it to somebody that isn't even set up for PeopleSoft, it won't let them do that. Okay. And then and I won't bother doing this because it'll take time for it to generate. But at the bottom of page 5 is an example of where I did insert another approver, and it's the highlighted section there for Carrie Clayton. And so on this example, once I approve it, then it routes to Carrie Clayton, and then when she approves it, then it would route to Grant Central Office because this particular example used a project. And then lastly, it goes to accounts payable. Okay, any questions about ad hoc approval? I know this is going to be a very different thing. Okay, we're good here. Oh wait, oh dear, she says she can't hear us? Oh yes, she can hear us. That's an old one, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh yes, okay, so I'm getting to comments. Okay. Oh, and do we think this one had comments? Yeah. Okay. So in addition, earlier one of you asked whether or not your comments route forward, and they are supposed to route forward. So when I clicked on the hyperlink for view hide comments, then right down here below this approval section, it shows where Faye had entered her comment. And granted, this one was just test. You could have something much more specific for your budget authority. Okay. And there's also the comments box, the free-form box at the bottom for the budget authority to type a comment in. It's only required if they're going to click the deny button. And for vouchers, the deny button actually means send back. As you can see, they've got the pushback button blanked out. So UT Share is not using that. They're using the deny button to send it back to you, to the creator, okay? Of course, the approve button means it's good. I'm approving it. It'll go to accounts payable or to whoever's next in line. The deny button sends it back. Budget authorities are required to enter a comment if they deny it. Otherwise, it's optional. There is an add comments button where, maybe somebody's just going to type something in there and save it. The hold button, if if in fact there were multiple approvers, so maybe the budget authority and a backup approver, and one or the other has already looked at it and they want more information before it does get approved, they can click the hold button, and I don't think it can be overridden. They can click the hold button and it'll sit there so nobody else approves it while they get more information, because they may need to see other supporting documentation, they may just want to talk with you, or maybe one of the faculty who ask you to do this, something like, so I'm sure there's all kinds of situations that you've run into. So for this particular, I'm ready, I can use this one, this is the last one.
I just made 9 different.
That's true. Faye had just indicated, if you remember, in expense reports, there is a specific send back button, which comes back to you. In expense reports, deny means dead. And we kind of thought maybe that's how it was working here yesterday, but the programmer told us, no, it's working as designed, and we're going to see the ugly terminate word, but it really goes back to you, where you can either make changes and route it back, or let us know we need to delete it or something. So, okay. All right. And so approve, and this will route forward. So now up in department approval, it shows it's done. It shows approved, and then it's pending for accounts payable. Okay. So then go to page 6. Okay. There is a reminder to click the save button. So if the budget authority does add an ad hoc approver, they do need to click the save button. That is in the procedures here. So the first couple times they do it, they'll probably need to use the procedures just to get the hang of it. Okay, and we talked about all of the information on page 6. And we've talked about, it doesn't show that I approved it. I think I have to do the little drop down there for, yeah. Okay, so, and green is good. I always say green is good. And so it shows that I've approved it and it's routed forward. And if either you or your budget authorities have questions about the vouchers or about workflows, please email accounts payable. And we'll do everything we can to answer the question, or certainly if it's a bug, get it fixed as fast as possible. So, okay. All right, so the next handout are the PO vouchers, and Sheila and Faye are going to talk with you about those. Sheila's our PO guru, and we did beef up these procedures on how, compared to what you had for 2014, to how to pull the PO in the best way, and so the two of them will work together on that.
Moving slightly faster. Okay, as Cindy said earlier, we won't go into things that you already know. So at this point, I have a voucher ready to go into copy from source document. So I'm going to copy my PO into this document. It's on page 2. So for the PO unit, it's always going to show just UT Tyler. And that is a good thing. If it showed all components, you might choose the wrong component and then your PO would not be there. Then we're going to search by purchase order only. And this is a different example from what is in your handout. In your handout, it just shows to use the search button up here for PO number, but we're going to hit the go button. Correct. And you go ahead.
So if you know your purchase order number, you'd go ahead and enter it here. If not, you hit the hourglass button. That's going to pull up all the PO options that you have. Go ahead and select one and then hit search. And so a couple of things to notice on this screen is view all here is highlighted white. So that tells you right there there's more than one line on the purchase order. So go ahead and select that so you can see all of the PO lines. If you only have one line that you want to pay on the purchase order, then you can go ahead and just select one of them. If you want to pay the whole entire purchase order, then you can select all.
If you received all items. Correct.
Right, yeah, whatever your invoice, whatever you're paying for, you want to select that line. And then copy selected lines, and that pulls everything over into the voucher.
Okay, that is very different from the instructions. Okay, so at this point, you can click on Save. Well,
We can update the instructions.
okay, so you click Save, and you're given a voucher ID number. Before you click Save, it only said Next up there. It's a good rule of thumb to always write your voucher number down on your supporting documentation. And then on each line item, we only have one line item on this one because Sheila just pulled in one of the two. If you go to purchase order and receiver info, it will give you details that you can find within your PO. Had you entered a receipt number, it would be showing here. And then there could also be receipt comments in here that you can add as well. Okay, and your next step would be to add your calc basis date. Cindy's already discussed that, so we won't go into that. And then on the invoice information screen, where's my attachment link? On invoice. Oh, no. It was
It's supposed to be my calc basis.
okay. Normally, you would have an attachment link right here. And there are two types of attachments that you must have for, yeah, it's just not there.
Oh, wait, scoot way over. That's the problem.
Here.
That's the problem. There it is.
Oh, there.
Okay.
Ta-da! Magically appears.
You're just missing part of the screen.
Okay. So we're actually on page 5. Okay. And for a PO voucher, there are two types of attachments that we will be looking for. The APS form or the invoice. So if someone is doing a service for the university, we do need that APS form. They're doing a service under their social.
And that acronym stands for Authorization for Personal Services, which the payroll office reviews and will sign. So you actually need to attach the signed copy of the APS form. This is something that up until now, Faye Jones has been attaching to vouchers. But once workflow is turned on, AP can't do any attachments. And we hate that, but apparently that's how it's set up.
And then on page 6, Cindy's already discussed this as well, your payment options, so we're not going to go into that. So once you've entered all this information, you might want to click save again, because if you get interrupted, everything you've done is going to be deleted. So it's a good rule of thumb, even after you've attached those attachments, to hit save. Because if those attachments are not in there, you're going to get your voucher returned to you by Miss Faye Jones. And, okay, so now we are ready for matching. And what's different on the PO voucher is you've got, in the action drop down, you've got two actions. You've got budget checking and you have matching. We're going to do matching. We do matching first before budget check. So we click on matching and then run. And you see the same message that you see on the non-PO voucher. For the demo, we're going to click on yes. And all of you know what happens here. You wait and wait and wait. You need to play the check.
So while we're waiting, you're probably, most of you, if not all of you, are accustomed to getting an email from Faye or Sheila when there are match errors. And Sheila will go into the match errors in detail, but probably most of you have gotten an email at least once to say, oh, there's a match error, you need to do your receiving, or wait, you have to pull in the PO or something like that. So, and Sheila will go into great detail about match errors in just a little bit.
Okay. We didn't have match errors on this one. You can see that the match status is matched. If there were errors, you would see a hyperlink here. So once matching is completed, you're ready to go for your budget check. So you go back to the invoice information screen. You'll see in the drop down, budget checking's your only option that is left. So you click on budget checking and then run. And you get the same message. So click on yes or no.
And to, just as a matter of process, it will force you to do matching before you do budget checking. So it won't matter if you forget, it'll tell you you haven't matched yet if you try to budget without matching.
Okay, it is now valid, a valid budget status. If there were errors, you would see a hyperlink here and it would say exceptions. You okay? What? Oh, okay. And then Cindy pretty much reviewed the budget errors for the non-PO voucher. The two are similar, except if you get the error exceeds budget tolerance, this is on page 8. Under number 1, the first bullet is you may not make funding changes on a PO voucher. If funding chart fields must be changed, you'll need to contact accounts payable to assist with deleting the voucher. And then after that voucher is deleted, you'll need to send a PO change request to purchasing.
The reason for this is budget authorities aren't going to see PO vouchers. Think about where they approve the transaction. They approved the order transaction when you did the requisition. So they've already approved the transaction, and so there's no reason for them to see the voucher. That's just extra work. And so it's programmed for these to not even route to the budget authorities. So on the one hand, you don't have to do duplicate entry on ImageNow, and on the other hand, they're going to get half of the work that they've been getting as far as having to approve that. So, but because they don't even see the PO vouchers, you can't change the funding on the voucher. It has to go back and be changed on the PO, and the budget authorities actually sign off on that PO change request form. Okay?
Okay, so at this point, we have match status. We've matched it. We've gone through our matching, and then our budget status is valid. So at this point, we can submit. To submit for approval, you go to the Invoice Information tab, and here on the right side of your screen, you'll see Submit for Approval. And everything is ready to go on this voucher, so we click Submit for Approval. You can add comments at this point. Click OK. And it has been submitted. If you go to the summary screen, you can see in approval history, it shows the voucher is pending. Remember, it's not going to route to the Budget Authority. As Cindy's already said, the Budget Authority has approved on that requisition. So it is going to AP for Faye Jones approval. Ready? Match exceptions.
Okay, so if you've never received an email from Faye Jones or myself about exceptions on vouchers, then you deserve a gold star. But we're going to talk about just a few of the most common ones. So you'll have an idea how to fix or what you need to do if you actually get it. On page 13 at the very top, exception no receipts exist. And you can find that in the error summary tab. This one actually says no errors, but if there was a match exception, then it would have this, it would look exactly like this. I wish we had one. It would say no receipts exist. One or two reasons why. One, you've created a purchase order and it's for goods and you haven't received your purchase order. And if you've ordered goods and you received them, your PO has to be received if it's for goods. If not, if it's for license, service, something like that, it does not. So all you would need to do is go back into your purchase order, receive it, then go back into your voucher, rematch it, and it should process fine. If you find that you got the error, but it wasn't for a good, it was for a license or something like that, then you need to pay close attention of the category code that you enter, because that's all because of the category code. So on the that would cause the receipt tab on your purchase order to be required instead of do not or optional. So if you enter in the wrong category code and it's for a license and you a category code for a good, it's going to make you need to receive it. And so that's when you would have to fill out a POCR, send it to purchasing. We would have to correct it on our end, and then we would respond back, and then you would go back into your voucher and rematch, and then it would process. See? Okay. Unit price intolerance in the middle of page 13. There's a couple of reasons why this could happen also. If you have credits on your voucher that you've entered, then you have to send that to purchasing. Cindy will have to do an override to clear that, and then you should be able to go back in and rematch your voucher. If you are trying to pay $55 on PO line 1, but you only have $35 left encumbered on PO line 1, then you're going to get that error because you don't have the money there to pay that amount. So then you would have to fill out a POCR, have your PO changed, up the amount, if that's really what you wanted to do, change the amount on the PO, and then we would respond back, and you could go back in and rematch your voucher.
Find out later.
Could have timed out by then, Faye said. True. Okay, page 14. Exception, PO vendor location. This one is, are we timed out right now?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, you would still go to error summary. It would say PO vendor / location here, just like it says at the top of page 14. So you would go to related documents, and then right there at the bottom where it says voucher line / PO information, click that arrow there, and that's going to pull up the purchase order number that's attached to the PO, attached to the voucher. All the way to the left, there's a little piece of paper there, or what looks like a piece of paper to me. It says details. You would click on that, and QA does not allow that screen to come up for whatever reason, but all it would give you is the PO information, and it's going to tell you the location that is on the purchase order, which should be UT Tyler or shared, but sometimes UTEP's in there, shared 2's in there, different locations end up there. So the voucher has to match, the voucher location has to match the PO location. If not, your voucher will not match. So you're going to go here, you're going to find out what location is on your purchase order, and then you're going to go to Invoice Information tab, and you can see right here, location is shared, and then you want to look at your Payments tab. You can see right here, location is shared. What I do before I make any changes at all is I'll always print screen the Payments tab, and the reason for that is because once you make a location change, it can change your addresses that you already entered, or it can change at the bottom on your Payments tab, your payment method. It can change that from ACH to check, and it can also change the handling from US to pickup. So that's something that you really have to pay closely, pay close attention to that. So once you've went to your purchase order, you see it should be UT Tyler location, and you've come over to the voucher and it's shared. Start on your Information tab and change that location to UT Tyler. That's going to automatically change it on your Payments tab. So change it first on your Invoice tab, sorry. Change it on your Invoice Information tab, and then it'll automatically change it on your Payment tab. Just make sure that on your print screen, or you wrote it down, or whatever you did to remember what you had before you changed it, that everything's the same. So before you changed it, it said 1, but once you changed it, maybe it changed to 1 here and 12 here. So all you need to do is go to the little hourglass here and select the address that you originally wanted it to be. And then once you've done that and made sure down here that you wanted it to be ACH instead of check, or all this is correct, hit save. And once you've done that, then rematch your voucher and should be good to go.
Okay, and just one note, the invoice that the vendor sends generally has the remit section somewhere on it. At the top, at the bottom, it says remit to. That remit address should match the payment address on the Payments tab. So you've got an address on Invoice Information, you've got an address on the Payments tab. They could be 2 different addresses. They might be the same location, but they could be 2 different addresses. And so you have to watch for that. So if you keep getting the wrong addresses, that you're putting the right address on your PO, it could be that the vendor record isn't correct. Probably most, if not all of you, have worked with vendors to complete the supplier information form. Page 2 of the supplier information form, has an order address and a remit to address. Sometimes for some vendors, they want the payment made to the order address. A lot of times it's 2 different addresses. We need to make sure that the vendor record is set up right. So if you encounter it once, maybe more than once, you might want to have us review the vendor record so we can make sure the vendor record is set up correctly, and you don't have to keep making corrections over here on the voucher. That takes up your time and wastes your time. And so we'd rather correct it in the vendor record so you can just get in here, pick it, and move on, and you don't get match errors because of location.
Okay, so one other thing. On page 15, there's a list of any exception that you could get. These are not, not all of them are very common, but they can happen. So if you have one that we haven't talked about today, because we're not going to go through every single one, but if you have one, then just contact purchasing and we can walk through it and we can discuss how either you can fix it or what we need to do on our end to fix it.
Okay, let me get close to the mic again. So that's all we had to discuss from the procedures. So now the big question is, when is all this going to happen? If you'll remember, when we went live with travel and expense for the travel authorizations and expense reports, we did it at fiscal year end, partly because basically we kind of shut down at fiscal year end anyway, get all of the documents approved before we cross over the fiscal year. And it took a little bit longer than we had planned because system needed us to test other stuff, what they call bundles and patches. Basically, they do upgrades to software before we could go live. And they threw that little monkey wrench in, and it took us a week longer than we planned. Well, we're not at fiscal year end, and we don't have to even wait till the end of the month. We've got a meeting with the system programmer on Thursday where we'll go over logistics. And once we have that meeting, we'll be able to send an email out to say, okay, this is what's happening. This is when it's going to happen. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that maybe it can be next week. Next week is already a short week. And so what will happen is we'll take the security away from you for creating vouchers, because we need to have time to get everything approved that's out there. What we've been told is, and remember we talked about our approve button is budget check process. And what we've been told, anything that hasn't been processed and that we've reviewed in budget check automatically goes to paid status. Just doesn't even let us review it. It just, boom, it's ready to be paid. We don't want that to happen. So we need to give Faye Jones and Marlena and the other ladies time to get in there and review the documents and get those approved. Then the programmer will load in workflow for us, and then we'll do a little bit of testing because we have to make sure what he puts in there works. This mostly works, so maybe Monday the 23rd, but we'll be better able to tell you that after the meeting with the programmer on Thursday. So, but he's told us we don't have to wait till the end of the month. We don't have to wait until February 1st. So we do have questions. Okay, they can still hear us and ask questions. So I realize this was a lot of information today, and you know, it's exciting news coming up. Image now won't have to be done. Yay, no more duplicate entry. Okay, so does anybody have questions about either the new processes that you'll be doing, or you know, maybe how it would be better for us to communicate to budget authorities? This was not required training for budget authorities, but once we finalized handouts, I didn't actually make any notes on handouts today. So you had one? Okay. So these are pretty close to ready for us to put on the website, but by all means, please read through this. And I realize in all your spare time, I know it's beginning of semester, you have 1,000,001 things to do. I'm so glad everybody could participate to hear this, though. It is different than what we've seen for expense reports. But if you have time, go through it. If you see typos, if you see things that just don't make sense, that's not how we want it to be, because you're used to entering vouchers. So a lot of this, you know, like the back of your hand, but brand new admins coming in, this is going to be their daily work document till they get used to doing it. And so we need it to be, as consistent and as easy to follow as we can make it, so it's usable for folks. So, you know, we welcome any information you can give us about the handout. So did anybody have questions about maybe go live or how things might be done there? We're good here. Nobody's, oh, we have one question. Oh, the question actually is from Susan Kleem about time and leave system being updated. Okay, so this is off topic, but Susan, my understanding is that UT System is working on testing. They haven't pushed that testing out to the campuses yet, so they're working on building probably or customizing what would be done in PeopleSoft. So it's not happening yet, but you know, hopefully it'll be happening soon. And that's all the news I have. I just know they're working on it. Okay. All right. Well, we don't have anything else to share right now, but you know where we live. So, send us an email if you've got questions or need more information. Okay, great. I thank everybody for coming, for taking time to come. We sure appreciate it.